This is Jeff with Whirlwind Family Farm. Thanks for finding our channel. And typically, those of you who watch this channel know that I like to be in the market garden, which is about 400 or 500 yards that way, because that's where all the things that we grow are. And I like to talk to you about those things that we plant in the spring, in the summer, and the fall. And it's been a while since I've been out on our path or out on our little trail where I typically address broader issues, different things. But today, specifically, something that's been in my mind for the past year that I think about is AI, which has become the hot topic in a lot of different circles on the internet. Some people look at AI as extremely dangerous. Others look at it as absolutely the future, which, spoiler alert, it is going to be the future. There's just no getting around artificial intelligence. And my thought is, how is it going to interact and how is it going to affect agriculture? And there's a lot of things that can be done and will be done technologically. And if I think about this carefully, there can be a lot of good that can be done with it in an agriculture manner. But first, you kind of have to look at where agriculture came from. And I'll tell you a couple of things that are kind of amazing to me. I looked this up to make sure I was right. The horse-drawn combiners, the horse-drawn combiner that were harvesting wheat or corn were around 1830s, 1840s, and somewhere in there. And you'll see these pictures in wheat fields. I don't know if it's in Canada or Kansas. I don't know where this is at. But there are 20 to 30 horses or mules pulling this horse-drawn wheat combiner. And that's the first time in history when people started having some sort of mechanism to harvest. Before that, they were out with a scythe, actually cutting by hand, bunching up together the wheat and threshing it by hand and taking it in. And a lot of you know the history of how wheat, and if you go back, and if you think about it, 1830, 1840, that's just a blink in a matter of time. So all of human history before that, there was no mechanization, no way to bring in wheat. And that brought agriculture down to a smaller scale, even in the early beginnings. Instead of having 30, 40 people are out in a field that had to be much smaller, now you had something that was harvesting wheat on a very large scale. And I think about those first combiners with all those mules or horses in front of them. That had to be damaging a lot of crop as they walked along, and then the combiners behind it. So that wasn't very efficient. And then finally, we got to the 1900s, I think early 1900s, where they started to be engine driven, and just from then on have advanced. The same thing if you look at the cotton industry. It wasn't till I think the 50s when the cotton stripper really became the thing that was used more exclusively on fields, and those got really perfected. I will tell you, a great video to watch, Brian Tong, and this shows you how technology has blended with agriculture. Brian Tong, who typically reviews all things electronics, he does a lot of things with Apple. He reviews a lot of things with electronics. Check out his channel, he's great. I've been following him for years. He does a video where he goes to Arkansas and looks at one of the new John Deere cotton strippers and how it goes through this field. And it's not fully autonomous yet, but it's close. And if you watch that video, it's pretty much driving itself. The operator's inside the cab and he's making sure everything's operating right. But when he starts down a row, it's operating itself. So that's how far we've come with cotton strippers, and it's putting it together in those big round bales and dropping it out. Incredible. And the same thing with these combiners. They have now become extremely not autonomous yet, but close. And now they have an autonomous vehicle, because one of the things you have to do when you're harvesting with combiners is there has to be a point when another tractor or vehicle comes alongside with a hopper, and everything has to be dumped into it. And if you see somebody, the driver has to know how to time that just right, stay the same speed as the combiner, come up alongside, and it starts to be dropped out so the combiner doesn't have to stop. Well, now that's done autonomously. There's vehicles that can come out, go alongside, stay perfectly synchronized, know when the hopper's full, pull off, go and dump it, and then come back alongside. That's what I've seen. Those of you that know more about that, please put it in the comments. I could be wrong, but that's what I've been reading. That's incredible. And combiners are at the point where they're going to be autonomous very, very soon. I'll never forget, this was 2014 when the movie Interstellar came out and Matthew McConaughey starred in it. I know a lot of people love that movie. Parts of it are a little disturbing to me. Both of my sons, who are young men, they love the movie. But I remember in 2014, the movie starts off, they're somewhere and there's wheat fields, and there are combiners that are just out in the field just doing their thing. And I remember in 2014 thinking, yeah, that's possible, but that's a long ways off. Well, here we are in 2025, and we're just about there. And speaking of John Deere, they now have fully autonomous tractors. And if you go to johndeere.com and look it up, I'm sure these tractors are going to be very, very expensive at this point. And a lot of the ag equipment is expensive, and it's a big overhead for these farmers. But now a farmer can be freed up to do other things in his day, and he can have a tractor, because the tractors are now fully autonomous. I think they use a camera array, they're using GPS, maybe LiDAR is in there with it. I don't know all the technology, but you can now have a tractor plowing by itself. So the technology is moving forward every single day. And I believe we're probably 3 to 5 years away from a lot of these things becoming completely autonomous. Now, to take it down to scale, to my little market garden, the biggest part of my day, especially when we get to spring and summer, is bed prep, and then later, as we get further along, harvest. Those are the two biggest things, the two biggest time consumers. Weeding is also an issue. We do it by hand. We try to do it as efficiently as possible. I have other videos you can check out where we use wire weeders and things that are preventative, but still it takes time. Well, there are now robotics out there that are getting close. I know the Tesla robot, and I'm trying to think, Optimus is what it's called. It's getting close. It's not there. They're saying $30,000 to $40,000 a piece. They'll probably be more expensive. I think they're getting close. They're probably a couple years away before they're going to be operational, maybe 3 years, and then they're going to start being sold. But can you imagine in a small garden setting? There's one of my neighbors traveling through. Can you imagine a setting where there's actually an autonomous, or there's actually a robot that's out there bed prepping for you, that's actually getting the beds prepped? Can you imagine a robot that's actually out there weeding or harvesting? And so the robotics side of it would be incredible. Now, there's going to be the cost associated. Is a farm going to be profitable enough to be able to buy something like that? But of course, with time, hopefully within my lifetime, that cost is going to come down. And I'm not saying that they're all going to look like Optimus. They're going to be those robotics out there that just go along, and who knows, maybe they just look like a little modified lawnmower and they go along and bed prep. Those that harvest may not look like a human type of Tesla Optimus, or those other robots out there that look like the human shape. They may be more just like a machine that goes along and gets the job done, whether it's harvesting different types of lettuces and salads, which they already have one of those machines that you can do by hand. Does save time versus cutting that lettuce by hand. And so the day is coming when those sorts of things are going to be available for farmers. And back to my original question when I was started off this video, talking about AI. A lot of people, my generation, which is the baby boomers, we just look at it as, this is foolishness. Why are we doing this? There's a lot of dangers associated with it. And that's kind of the viewpoint I think my generation looks at it as. And there's a lot of validity to that. I've seen YouTubers already that have posted videos where their likeness and their voice has been used, saying things that they never said and things they don't even believe, or things they would never say. And their likeness has been used and that's a dangerous thing. If I'm saying his name correctly, one I can think of is DeGrasse Tyson, which is the physicist. He recently showed a video where it was him talking about some theory, something, and as he went along in his video, he held up his phone and was showing it, and he goes, "That's fine, but that's not me." So that's the scary side of AI, is it can really be misused, and there's got to be things in place that stop that. But the other side is the learning side of it is going to be that we're going to have incredible technology that can allow, and bringing this back to agriculture, bringing it back to a farmer, one guy or his family that can operate thousands of acres. Because now that technology can free him or her up to do other productive things on the farm and not spend 30 hours on a tractor. And that's where we're headed. It is headed that way. And I'll bring it to vehicles. EVs, which are now on the market, as you know, there's several brands, and I'll use Tesla as the example. You may hate Tesla, you may love Tesla. I don't know where you come down on it. Doesn't matter, because that technology is only moving forward. The AI is the thing that's driving those vehicles, is that each day is one of those vehicles travels down a road, it's gathering data, it knows exactly what the road looks like, where it's at, the conditions of the road, and it's just building a database so that the next time one of those autonomous cars comes along, it already knows what's in front of it. It already knows, more so than humans will be at some point. So the technology, especially for my generation, seems scary. I'll talk to a lot of people, my peers, my age, and they have nothing good to say about the new technology. And I'll agree with them. If you start up and race the engine on a Dodge Hellcat, there's nothing that sounds better. But the day is going to come when those vehicles just don't exist anymore. It's just the reality heading forward. And so what my hope and my prayer is that with this technology, there'll be parameters that are against the law, and there's going to be those things which are going to be um, just a real blessing. Because if that technology is used properly, I know for me, while I may be over here planting into my seed trays and prepping things, I could have robotics over prepping a bed, planting a bed, and even using a seeder to go out and start planting. And that literally gets me a day or two ahead with the technology. So it really is and can be used and be a incredible thing. So I'm going to flash back now that we've talked about the technology. I'll end this video on something that reminds me of when I was a young man, when I used to work for both my uncle and my grandfather. My grandfather had a little Massey Ferguson, and he would use that thing because he was raised in the Great Depression, back when, gosh, you didn't throw anything away and you saved everything. And when he bought a tractor, he bought the most economical thing he could find. This is in the early 70s. And he had a little Massey Ferguson. And that poor little Massey Ferguson plowed far more acres than it should have, because he wasn't going to buy a bigger tractor, and he certainly wasn't going to buy a tractor that had any extra technology on it. Now, on the other end, his son, my uncle, lived in a town where there was a Ford tractor testing facility. And he knew the gentleman that ran the place, and Ford would test their latest models that came out back then of their tractors. And I don't even know if Ford still makes tractors. I don't think they do. I should have looked that up. But so they would try to get so many hours on these tractors and then tear them down, check the engines, the usage of diesel, the amount of oil, all those things. And I can remember going from plowing in that little Massey Ferguson, where I got to tell you, it was like sometimes like riding a bronking bull to go out and plow, to going over to when my uncle, this Ford test facility, would say, "Here, you can sign this tractor out and have it for 2 weeks, use it to plow or use it to do this, and then we need it back in 2 weeks because we need somebody to test it." And that was so cool, because my uncle would say, "Hey, I need you to go plow this field for me. Can you do it?" "Absolutely." And he would pay me so much to do it. And first of all, these tractors were four-wheel drive, something that I had never dealt with before. That was a technology that started coming along in tractors later. These tractors were four-wheel drive, so it was less of that struggling in the soil. These tractors had cabs, they had air conditioning, they had AM, FM radio, and let me tell you, I could not imagine anything being more technologically incredible than that. There I was plowing, listening to my favorite radio station. This was down by San Antonio, plowing in perfect comfort. It was a really cool thing. Fast forward to now, that was in the 70s. Fast forward to now, and we have tractors literally where you prep it, get it ready to get out to the field and let it go. It's just absolutely mind blowing. So that's where we've come with technology, and it's only going to move forward from here. And again, my hope is that not only is it helping these thousands of acre monocrop systems with these autonomous combiners and tractors, but there can be robotics even for the smaller scale farmer like us at Whirlwind Family Farm, where there can be some robotics that's actually performing tasks that free up our day and allow things to be easier, quicker, and it'll allow some people to do it longer in their life. As they get older, there's just some things. Again, I'm a baby boomer, and there's days when my back is killing me because I've had to use the broad fork. I've had to bend over, and I'm planting transplants out into a row, and it can be some backbreaking work. And if we can bring that artificial intelligence to a robotic system that can do it, it's pretty incredible. So those are my thoughts. Please put your thoughts in the comment section. There's going to be those of you who absolutely cannot stand the world that we're moving into. And I get it. I understand. I was raised when none of this existed. And there's going to be those of you that go, this is the future. It is what it is. And those of you who say that, you're probably right. Because here you are watching me in the middle of a field in Central Texas. And if you go back 15, 20, well, YouTube's been around 20 years. If you go back 30 years, this wasn't possible. And now you have the options to be able to watch all these things because of intelligence or because of this technology. So thanks again for finding our channel. Again, I'm Jeff with Whirlwind Family Farm. We appreciate it when you like, subscribe, hit that bell for notification. We'll have another video right over here you can check out that'll take you further along in your gardening process. Blessings over you, your family, and your garden. Talk to you soon from Whirlwind Family Farm.